Hello, Garland Nixon here. It's Friday and been a little busy this week, but Jamarl and I have gotten back together and we got one or two things we might need to talk about. Let's talk. Hello. I don't know if it's just me, but it's just been one of those weeks. My gosh, it's been one of those weeks. And so Jamarl and I weren't able to do Monday or Tuesday, but we're back Monday or Wednesday, but we're back today and we got some things to talk about. So let's get rolling. I was going to say the big one, but there's a number of big ones. Let's start with this big one. Donald Trump, I could put it a lot of different ways, but apparently the Trump administration is threatening to, I could put it like this. Donald Trump's threatened to wipe out his own presidency and obliterate the entire Western economy. Now, that's one way of saying he's threatening to attack Iran. It's like, what are the stakes? I have a daughter, and I remember, I was always trying to give her philosophical advice when she was young and growing up. And one of the things I talked to her about decision making, I said, look, think about whenever you got to make some kind of a critical decision, what's the worst thing that could happen? And am I prepared to deal with that? Always keep that in mind. What's the worst that could happen? Am I prepared to deal with that? That will also influence your decision. So you got Trump and these goons bringing in B-1 bombers, and people are, is it a bluff? Is it not a bluff? But let's just say it's not a bluff. If they attack Iran, I was watching someone today who said they did these calculations, and that it might have been on yours, I don't remember where, and they said, well, we calculated that oil would go up to like $500 to $800 a barrel, and that would pretty much wipe out our economy, blah, 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 if they close the Straits of Hormuz. But then now add this in, literally, they could take out all of the oil infrastructure, what would take 10 years to rebuild? You know what I mean? Basically, why would you take a chance of doing something that could wipe out, your president? Let's say you do it 4 weeks into your presidency. At that point, your presidency has been 4 weeks long. Your so-called great economic plans, which I may not agree with, but you think they're going to work. I don't. I think they're going to really fail miserably, but you think they're going to work. Well, there ain't no point in it if oil's $800 a gallon when you can get it. So that's the first thought, is you're going to take a chance with wiping out the entire Western economy, if not the entire world economy. For what? Because Israel wants you to stop Iran because they're supporting the axis of resistance. Jamarl, what manner of madness are we looking at here?
It's insane. Like, it's just outlandish. Like, I think the most bizarre element of it is that Iran has said that they wanted a deal. And you get the president of Iran, Pezeshkian, coming out effectively advocating for a deal, with the Ayatollah saying, well, we're not going to negotiate under threat. And Pezeshkian said, okay, well, fair enough. I would align my position with the Ayatollah, and so forth. It's like somebody says, I want a blue car. And the other person says, well, I want to buy a blue car. But you're going to sell it to me, or I'm going to punch you in the face. And it's like, dude, I'm not selling you the blue car if you're threatening to punch me in the face. But you can get the blue car if you just negotiate. It's that you have a willing party that is willing to negotiate and come to some kind of terms of a deal. The Trump administration is effectively threatening them as they advocate, or at the very least show that they're willing to accept a deal. It's outlandish. And as you point out, what does he expect to take place? Are they really believing that they're going to hit Iran, and Iran is just going to say, okay, well, we've absorbed that hit, we're not going to do anything else? Or do they think, well, we're going to hit Iran and we're going to get rid of all the nuclear sites, all of their missile silos, everything else, and they're not going to be able to respond? If that is what they're thinking, they're out of their goddamn minds. There is no circumstance by which you're going to hit Iran and Iran's just going to stand there and take the hit and not respond. After you hit it, Israel will be toast. Full stop. Israel will be toast. It will be the first target, along with many of the other oil networks from the Quisling governments that are under the U.S. as a vassal. And even the Strait of Hormuz, which they have effectively been practicing and closing for years. I had Morandi on the show. Morandi pointed out, he says, we have been preparing for the US for decades. Ever since they went and invaded Iraq, we have been preparing because we assumed that at some point they were going to hit us. It is madness that Trump is willing to destroy his presidency in this particular fashion, if indeed he's willing to do it. So one last point. The irony or the ridiculousness of coming to terms in a deal with Russia on the issue of Ukraine and then starting another conflict with Russia over the issue of Iran. Like, I think Malouf pointed this out in the sense of like, China and Russia are deeply invested in Iran's security. And they are not necessarily going to stand by and be like, oh, well, the US attacked another Middle Eastern country, a country we've signed a security agreement with. Whatever deal you make with Russia, you're going to come at odds with them again on the issue of Iran. This makes no sense. It's not good for the presidency. It is not good for the Trump administration. You have a willing partner that is open to making a deal, despite the fact that you're not the most trustworthy actor in the world. And they don't want to do it. Take my blue car. Nope. I only take it by force. Dude, I'm trying to sell you the blue car. I understand that, but I'm going to punch you if you don't sell it. Dude, you don't need to threaten me. I'm willing to take the car. It's that. And so there was Iran, apparently, just to put a button in this, Iran responded to Donald Trump's letter. Donald Trump said the letter of threats, effectively saying you have 2 months or else. Iran finally responded through a third-party actor. And in that response, nobody knows what it is. John Kiriakou pointed out that he thinks it's FU. So I don't know. But they also pointed out, though, that behind the scenes, they sent effectively back channel communication saying they were open to communicate in a back channel way in some kind of negotiation format. And so I don't know. It's very possible that Trump is doing this threaten in order to de-escalate to a deal. I have no idea what Trump is doing, but I agree with you. He will fundamentally destroy any notion of a presidency that he thinks he has. If he's going to attack a country 3 times the size of Iraq, he's out of his mind.
The other thing is this: the U.S. and this has to be taken into account. I mean, it's part of the discussion. Where I'm absolutely opposed to, let's face it, attacking another country and starting a war, a second war. To say I'm the peacemaker, I'm the guy that's going to judge me by the wars I don't start. We already started one against the Houthis, right? That's one. In 2 months, you started one. That's one too many. Now you're going to go for 2. Okay, two. You're getting ahead of Biden or anybody else all of a sudden. You're going to be hard to catch up with if you're starting a war every month or so. Well, what do we get? 1 every 2 months? That's 6 wars a year. I don't think we can handle that. But the bottom line is this too, and this is a part of the discussion. Iran has a significant indigenous air defense. Iran has a significant. We don't know how much or what has happened, but Russia has very, very highly technical air defense capabilities,
Yes, they do.
electronic warfare capabilities. We know that they have signed some kind of a
Security
pact, an agreement, and that Russia has been working to help Iran build their. As I've heard, to build their air defense systems, particularly. Right.
Mm-hmm.
What happens if you throw a rock and it bounces off? What happens next? Okay, we're going to attack Iran, and you fire a bunch of missiles, and your missiles get shot down, and you send a bunch of planes in, and your planes get shot down, and effectively you lose, and they still respond and knock the crap out of a bunch of your bases, and you lose the war on day one. What do you do then? Oh, well, we're going to fire nuclear weapons. What was the plan again? To stop them from getting nuclear weapons? We're going to attack them with nuclear weapons. Why? Because they're crazy people. They may get nuclear weapons and then they'll use them against somebody. How are you going to stop them? By using nuclear weapons. And the United States then becomes a pariah to the world, becomes isolated again. Any way you look at it. Might I add, no commercial ships are going to go in the area. No insurer is going to insure them in the area. Nobody will go in that area if there's a nuclear weapon use, or even if there's a war going on. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
You're going to attack a country not knowing how advanced their capabilities are, not knowing that if you attack them, you may fail miserably. And on top of everything else, it's let me add this. At the same time, you're trying to convince the Russians that you are a credible, good faith actor in a deal. right? Make a deal with me. I'm a credible actor and I'm a good faith actor. What about Iran? Well, we had a deal with them. What'd you do? We walked away from it and then we attacked them. And Russia spoke. They're looking. Let's see. You had a deal with them. You signed it. You didn't keep the deal. You walked away from the deal. And after you walked away from the deal, you said to them, "We expect you to maintain it to still live up to the deal." We literally walked away from the JCPOA and then gave Iran hell because they weren't still administering the deal that we walked away from, and then attack them anyway. At that point, if I'm the Russians, I'm like, yeah, I don't need to meet you guys in Riyadh and talk about anything. We'll just finish what we're doing in Iran. If you're going to attack us, save yourself the time and do it now. But obviously, you're not a good faith actor. No thanks. And they can't see that this would affect how the Russians or anyone else would view them as good faith actors in negotiations. This is beyond absurd.
I don't think the Russians trust the U.S. either way.
No, well, no.
Being honest with you, I think from their point of view, they're trying to get whatever they can get out of Trump in regards to a deal, with the notion that the next administration may necessarily be the most favorable, but may stick to some kind of agreement. But I don't think that they trust the U.S. at all. So regardless of what they're doing with Iran, I don't think they have trust from Russia in the first place. Also, I think you're right about this notion of military generals always tell people, oh, we'll be finished by the war by Christmas. Saudi Arabia, when it was talking to Obama about bombing Yemen, was like, yeah, this will be over quick. It's not going to be that bad. And the New York Times points out how Obama was sitting there thinking to himself, this is going to be horrible. This is going to be bloody. And Obama was right, even though he still gave the green light for them to attack Yemen. Look, we don't know the full capabilities of Iran. We do know they're sophisticated. We do know they have a technical arsenal that is sophisticated, especially missile systems. We saw it when Israel tried to attack and they were knocking stuff out the sky. And Israel was like, oh, there's some anomaly that came into play. Yeah, they have a missile system that you didn't recognize that they had. When they shot our drone out the sky, and Trump was thinking about going to war after they shot our drone out the sky, mind you, the drone wasn't over Texas. It was over Iran. They blew the shit out the sky because it was over Iran. Well, the U.S. was like, oh my God, we had no idea that they could hit that high at that ceiling. Okay, so there's a blind spot in your knowledge of them. You know, this puts in your mind where Hitler's like, oh, we'll just knock over the door. You know, we'll kick it open and they'll fall apart. No, they didn't. They always have these fanciful ideas of what they can accomplish. I go another one, Cuban Missile Crisis, where John F. Kennedy calls Eisenhower, and Eisenhower's like, oh, Khrushchev is bluffing. Khrushchev was not bluffing. The order had already been given. I'm saying whatever they're telling Trump are probably yes men. And again, assuming for the moment that this is not Trump bluffing with the idea of de-escalating after the fact, and assuming for the moment that he is serious about this, he will destroy his presidency. This idea that you're going to have this bombing strike, I think Ritter was on, like, oh, they're going to hit him with nukes and they're going to destroy all of the Nika silos. I don't believe you. No. I told Ritter, I don't believe you. I don't believe you. Generals and military men say this nonsense all the time, as if whoever they're going to attack is going to fall over the moment that you first hit them, not realizing that that punch is coming. You better be willing to take the punch to the face at the point where you throw that first punch. And are you prepared for what that is? Are you prepared to have your plane shot down? Are you prepared to have your ship shot out of the ocean? Are you prepared for that? But we're not talking about hitting Yemen. We're talking about hitting a country of 80 million people with an arsenal that is, let's say, improved by the Russian government and will be continually improved by the Russian government since they have a military agreement with them, and that actually has the capacity to blow our planes out the sky. Maybe I'm wrong or something. Maybe I'm missing something that the U.S. is hiding in its arsenal. Maybe it has a UFO that can fly and hit Iran, and Iran's like, what the hell was that? What just hit us? But I'm very doubtful of that. I'm very doubtful of the U.S. using a UFO with the U.S. Air Force sticker on it in order to have this attack. I think they are grotesquely underestimating Iran's capabilities and what would happen if they hit Iran. And if they hit it with nukes, we're in a different world. I honestly believe that in the same way the context of the world shifted with the US and NATO countries effectively arming Ukraine to the T and pushing them into this fool's errand of a war. Oh, we're going to offer you NATO membership. Oh, we know that this is going to provoke a civil war, but we're still going to push this anyway. And then when Russia finally invades, they're like, oh my God, I can't believe Russia invaded. Despite the fact that going back to 2008, William Burns pointed out Russia's going to invade. Aristovich himself pointed out, we knew that Russia had to invade because we were going to keep moving towards NATO. We were going to blow off the Minsk agreements. Okay, fair enough. You knew that was going to happen, but you didn't know the context of the world was going to change when you lost. And I'm saying, if they do this and they are not able to accomplish what they think they want to accomplish, the context of the world will also change. Like, and look, this goes back to General, oh, what is his name? It's not Walker. Where he talked about they want to take over all of these countries with Iran being the final country.
Yes. Wesley Clark.
Wesley Clark. They knocked over every country. Iran is the last one. And the catch becomes, do they have the capability of knocking over a country 3 times the size of Iraq? And this is after the agreements with Saudi Arabia, after the agreements with Russia. And what I mean by agreement with Saudi Arabia, where there's been this rapprochement, as they call it, meaning Trump is in a different world than he was the first time around when he was in office. And he was acting as if time hasn't moved on, that the world hasn't changed. It has. You are dealing with a sophisticated technical country in a way that you're not accustomed to. We knock over small countries. We attack countries like Yemen. We attack countries that can't defend themselves. This is not that. This is a different animal. This is a different animal.
When you think about it, this is a country that has hundreds of thousands of ballistic missiles.
Yes.
We don't even know. And I read, according to the Iranians, they've got like sites that are like under 500 feet of rock in the mountains, and it's high with mountains. And they said if we opened a different missile site we could open a different missile site every year, every week for a year. That's what they said. Every week for a year, we could open a different missile site and attack and strike you from a different missile site every year. So here's the bottom line. There are people who are out there arguing, military minds, that said, well, if we attack Iran, we will lose the war. That's what they say. Now, based on what's happening in Yemen, we're in this terrible struggle with Yemen. And because what do we have to do? We have to send an expeditionary force all the way across the world to go to attack someone who's at home. Now you're talking about sending an expeditionary force all the way across to attack someone. Now, what's interesting is this. The way it's put, they're like, oh, there's 3 aircraft carrier groups and there's 7 planes, whatever you want to call it. There's 6 or 7 of these B-1 bombers and B-52s. Ooh, that's a powerful force that's being assembled, right?
Mm-hmm.
For a strike. For a strike. And the Iranians are sitting there saying, okay, you might get a strike in. Then what? What is your plan? And what if your strike is not all that effective, which I have a funny feeling with their air defenses, it ain't going to be. And they say, like what was the movie? I can't think of V for Vendetta. My turn. You strike them, and ain't that effective, or it is, or whatever. And they say, okay, my turn. Now here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to rain down thousands of missiles on U.S. bases. Your base where the 6th Fleet is in Bahrain, there ain't nothing going to be there bigger than the size of a quarter by the time 2,000 missiles hit that base. Every base you have, oh, well, that's right. You got bases in Iraq. We have PMU groups. We're going to hit them with missiles, and then our local groups will come in and overrun them and kill everybody there. Oh, Syria, you got a few there, huh? They're flat. Now, might I add, there are a lot of Shiites in Africa, aren't they? It would not surprise me if they have plans to attack bases and or embassies in Africa. Now, what do you do? What do? You've struck. Okay, we launched a big strike. I hit them, right? And what do we do? Every time we hit the Houthis, wham! And the Houthis just kind of shake their head and smile and say, is that all you got? Let's go. What do you do when you punch somebody as hard as you can, and they shake their head a little bit and smile and look at you and say, is that all you got? Okay, now I'm warmed up, man. Now I got the first punch in. Let's go. I'm ready to fight. And you just hit them with all you had, and all you did was piss them off. And now they're sitting there saying, okay, we got 100,000 missiles with your name on them. And we've been waiting for this for a long, long time. We got all kind of plans that you had never, ever suspected. We got maritime drones, undersea drones, flying drones, air, sea, and land drones everywhere. Everything that looks remotely like it's American, anywhere within 500 miles, we're going to turn it to rubble. Wham. Now, what do? You've lost. And as you said, Donald Trump, you can't call it the Trump presidency at this point. It is the greatest debacle in American history. He's setting himself up for what? I mean, and we've had some debacles, don't get me wrong. And Ukraine is set up to be a major debacle, but it would pale in comparison to the immediacy of this debacle if they struck back. And let me tell you, Americans do not like gas. If the U.S. went to war in Iran and gas went up $1.50 a gallon, people would go bananas. But what happens if it quadruples the prices? And they say, well, if you've got an even number on your tags, you can get it on even days and on odd days if the gas station has any, but we're not sure. And what happens if Russia says, because there's no oil coming out of the Middle East? Well, let's see. I guess Russia's the biggest producer in the world, aren't they? And Russia says, oh, by the way, we ain't sell you no oil. None, zero, no diesel, no nothing. Sorry, find someplace else to get it. Then what do? You know what I mean? It's the historical, it's a debacle of historical proportions. At that point, this country becomes unstable politically and probably to some extent militarily and kinetically. Who knows what people will do? But you become unstable. And by the way, that I mentioned we'll be living in a depression. Absurd. What are you going to do? Draft people?
Remember.
We're going to war to fight for Israel. Then you're going to have you try to draft people after that to go fight for Israel. Now you're going to have a civil war. These young people ain't going to do it, brother. You know as well as I ain't going to go fight for Israel.
Look, I tell you, the Carter administration, when they had to deal with all of the price hikes in the gas, and you had people, all of these iconic pictures of people waiting at the gas station, not able to fill their car up. And it's like 20 cars lined up back to back to back, each one of them looking to get gas. If Trump wants that for his presidency, and let's keep in mind, people didn't elect Trump for that. Like none of the stuff, I know of nobody that said, I'm voting for Trump because I want him to destroy Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid. I'm voting for Trump because I want him to increase gas prices by 30%, 50%, 100%. Nobody voted for that, right? They voted for the opposite. They voted with this idea of, okay, he's going to be a better steward of the economy. Can't be a better steward of the economy if you go in some kind of geopolitical adventurism and you end up starting a war, A, that you can't extricate yourself from, and B, that damages all Americans. Like, look, Americans would allow the president to do bombings in Yemen, providing it doesn't affect us. But they would allow this kind of pressure campaign, providing it doesn't affect us. The moment that you do something that has a blowback, and by the way, Joe Biden found this out the hard way too. If you remember, the prices went up under Joe Biden when he decided to go into this war in Ukraine. And he decided, okay, we're going to pass sanctions on Russia, which means that, like 70,000 barrels a day no longer comes to the US, in which gas prices went up. And you get, what is her name? The press secretary, Jen Psaki. I distinctly remember, I think I even got this clip where she says, our values are not without cost. Oh, I love that clip. I love that clip.
I remember Putin's
It's so honest.
Remember right. Putin's price hike?
Yep. Well, that's what they went with after, when they realized us saying our values are not without cost is not settling all that. Well, basically, Americans should pay for our values. It's like, wait a minute, those are your values. Those aren't my values. I'm paying higher gas prices, and you're talking about values. I'm paying more for food, and you're talking about values. Okay, this is not about values. This is about choices that you make. And some choices are good, some choices are bad. I see no positive benefit in going to war with Iran, nor is it necessary to go to war with Iran from America's point of view. What issue does America have with Iran in real terms? Israel has an issue with Iran. Israel is concerned about its own security, but Israel is concerned about security because it's starting wars all over the side. Has an open-air ghetto, and it's occupying a territory. So that's Israel's issue, not ours. And look, Israel's security has nothing. I don't care about it, if I'm being bluntly honest with you. It is an open-air apartheid state, open-air ghetto apartheid state that it is maintaining. And they are starting wars, bombing in Beirut this morning. What's time? What time is it? It's 8 o'clock, 4 o'clock. Bombing in Beirut today, or this morning, attacking Syria and expanding their territory in Syria, opening another campaign in Gaza. And if you remember, part of Iran's point was, dude, what are you doing? If Trump would have just abided by the ceasefire, which he doesn't seem to do, the Houthis were no longer been an issue, and Iran would have no longer been an issue. And so now he is on the brink of ending his presidency over what I strongly suspect he can't explain to the American public. And an America First president, as he was elected, is an Israel First president, in fact, in the way that he is acting. Like the notion that you're dragging America into war for another country that is going to fundamentally destroy his presidency is outrageous and unacceptable. Unacceptable. I agree.
I do think this too. You know, Trump came in saying certain things. Judge me by the wars I don't start. I'm going to be the peace president. I talked to President Xi on the phone today, and I said, we are going to work together to bring peace to the world, right? All of this stuff, right? People are like, oh, yeah, oh, great. Oh, Trump's bringing peace to the world. That sounds good, right? I thought that sounds good. We'll see what happens. Okay. 8 weeks in, we bombed Yemen to make a point. We bombed them to demonstrate our power, to intimidate Iran, right? We attacked the country for the stupidest of reasons. At this point, here's what I got to say. I don't see how anyone could take anything that Donald Trump said on the campaign trail as credible anymore. You know what I mean? I mean, look, okay, you could say, I won't do this or that, and it could be something small. For instance, he could say, I've given up coffee and I'll never drink another coffee. And then he takes a sip of coffee. Fair enough, those things happen. Okay, you're tired, you need been in a lot of meetings all day. Oh, fair enough. Okay, you took a sip of coffee.
I'm stop smoking. Yeah.
Exactly. And then you smoke one cigarette here and there. All right, I ain't gonna hate on you. Okay, but when you say something as significant as I'm going to be the peacemaker, judge me. You need standards to judge this president by. I want you to vote for me. Muslim voters, don't vote for Trump. Vote for me and I'll stop this war over there, right? Vote for me and I'll do this because it's the right thing to do. And everybody else, trust me, I'm telling you, this crap of the warmongers. And there was videos of Trump. I'm going to get the warmongers out of Washington and the neocons out of Washington and all. But out of Washington, he needs to get them out of his own cabinet. But he ain't going to do that, right? And then 8 weeks, that's how long you made Mr. Peacemaker. And at that point, my position is, which it was kind of halfway there with any politician anyway, but my position is anything that Donald Trump said, I do not take as a credible claim. He has now demonstrated to me that he has no concern whatsoever with keeping any of the promises that he made, and that any and everything he said on the campaign trail was just to get elected. And it was all, I'm not saying it was all lies. I don't mean lies. Here's what I mean. He's apathetic about whether they were true. If that's what he happens to do, he'll do. If he wants to do something else, he'll do something else. But Donald Trump is not going to say, I can't do this because I promised my voters that I won't. And any of like MAGA diehard Trump people who still believe him, I think they're going to learn that more time and time again. They're going to learn that once again, he is the Republican Obama. You know, Obama came and told us all these wonderful things he was going to do, and he just violated all of them. Yeah, he was their hope and change. Although he went longer than 2 months out there. Nah, if you look at, as soon as he chose his cabinet, and I'm like, oh my God, look at this cabinet. I'm supposed to believe that, what's this guy's name? The guy that was his chief of staff from Chicago. The worst.
Rahm Emanuel.
Yeah. But as soon as you see Rahm Emanuel, you know, and Hillary Clinton, you kind of know where this situation's going. You know what I mean? But I'm just saying that's what he is. He hope and change, Republicans. You can believe me. I'm MAGA. I'm Trump. Man, okay, I'm in office. Never mind.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. But see, the difference is, I always thought Trump was a flagrant liar. Like, if Trump told me it was raining, I would go outside and check. It's like that, right? I hoped, look, from my point of view, I had two reasons for my take on Trump. One, I hope he ended the war in Ukraine because that war A should have never started. All those people were getting killed. I wanted it to end. And he seemed like he was moving in that direction where he was like, this is Joe Biden's war. All these
Yeah.
people are dying. I'm going to end it. And it seemed like he was going with this idea where he kind of accepted the role of, well, I might not be anti-war, but at the very least, I don't believe in starting wars. And as you pointed out, judge me by the wars I end, not the wars I start. Okay, fair enough. That is the mantle that he's putting out. I have deep, deep distrust in Trump because he is amoral towards the truth. Like, it doesn't seem like it matters to him one way or the other. It's just I say whatever I need to say to get from point A to point B. And once I get to point B, I'll make something else up to get to point C. And I can do this all week, like Captain America. I can do this all year.
Yeah.
That is the way I see him. That is the way I view him. That is the lens to which he is for me, which puts me in this weird spot of like, I don't know why anybody would believe him for anything, frankly. Like when somebody says, I have the biggest crowds in the world. Okay, no, you don't. I am the most popular president. Okay, George Washington, FDR, LBJ, like all of these people are far more popular than you. Donald Trump is sagging in the polling at this point, and his competition was Joe Biden or Kamala Harris. So again, it's not like you're running against Rocky. You're running against, a mouse of sorts, a man who might have soiled himself in a meeting. That is not the most dramatic beating in the world, considering who you were effectively running against. Trump had the potential to make an amazing presidency. And I suspect, believe it or not, even everything I just said, bashing the guy, his political instincts, if it wasn't for Israel having a hook in his ass, might actually be pretty decent. Because I get the sense that if it wasn't for Israel giving him, Miriam Adelson, Adelson, giving him $100 million, or all of these lobby people from Israel giving them all of this money to the campaign, them having their hooks in Elon Musk and Hegseth, who believes that Christ is coming back because of something taking place with Israel. Some of these people are nuts. What is the other guy's name? He used to be a politician.
Neocon, Walt?
Another neocon. Rubio, another neocon. All of these people are fundamentally nuts. Now, he might have bent them in the shape on the issue of Ukraine. The world is different. Like, Trump has bent these people in the form on the issue of Ukraine, but that's just one single issue. When you get to any other issue associated with Israel, they're lunatics. And it seems that he's okay with them being lunatics. I suspect his political instincts will be, I want to make a deal. I want to go to Iran, shake hands, sign an agreement. And he's sending out overtures for a deal. But the problem is he's sending them out with this American point of view of we need to be strong as we try to negotiate, as opposed to just negotiating. That's the part that gets me. It's not, it's like, I'm willing to make a deal with you. I'm just not willing to make a deal with you under threat. So why don't you just remove the threat? Well, I can't do that because I'm American. We're strong. We must show dominance. Okay, but dude, I'm willing to make a deal with you. Get rid of the threat. It's the threat that's the issue. The threat comes across as if the deal is being made because I'm terrified of you. I'm scared of you, which is why I'm making a deal. I can't negotiate with you under that optics, if that makes sense. Under that framing, I can negotiate with you outside of that framing. How do I look as a leader of a country that seems to be, dragging ass to America because they're threatening me to all of the 80 million people in my country? No leader would do that. No leader would do that. And so it's comically ridiculous. It is absurd on its face. Donald Trump is failing miserably at negotiation, even with Russia, by the way. It's absurd. And again, the notion that you are willing to destroy your president of Israel is outrageous. Like the notion that the man, and again, I know I say he's amoral to the truth, I guess this makes the point, who runs around screaming about America first is taking a policy that is perfectly in the context of Israel. And by the way, it's not in Israel's interest either. Like they're suicidal. The notion that you're going to hit Iran and Iran is not going to immediately turn to hit Israel, knowing full well that Israel is the reason that Iran is being hit, it's absurd. Israel has shown that it does not have the capability of knocking down Iranian missiles. And they would rain on Israel like fire from the sky. Just like if they want Israel to disappear from the map, this is the exact path they should take to do it.
Yeah,
It's stupid.
one of the things I think we see here is this. We all have based on our view of the world, we have conflict resolution skills, right? And the way you react to things demonstrates your conflict resolution skills. Now, there are people whose they call it like a turtle. You'll approach somebody, what do you want to do about this? And they're just like, and I've known people like this. I have a friend like that who you talk to this person, you say, oh, there's a problem. What do you? And they just kind of look at you, and you can tell they're frightened, and they just go into a shell. And I've been around you, but we've all been around people like that. That if they see some kind of problem or confrontation, they just kind of get quiet. And their conflict, the old thing, what is it? Fight, flight, or freeze. And there are people who if there's a conflict or problem, they don't know what to do and they freeze, right? Some animals do that. They freeze. That's their camouflage, right? Now, Donald Trump, clearly his conflict resolution skills are really screwed up, but they are, I got to make myself look tough. That's the bird that puffs up his feathers to try to look bigger than he really is so he can scare the other bird and they won't attack him but why does the bird do that? Because he's afraid, right? It's a fear-based thing. Whenever I try to scare other people, constantly, how do you deal with other people? I try to frighten them. Well, why would you try to frighten them? Why do animals do that? Because they're afraid, right? So Donald Trump's, what I see, this is my, evaluation of Trump. He lives in a fear-based reality. And he feels if I'm going to navigate with, if I'm going to, come up with any kind of a discussion with someone, if I've got to deal with an issue, if I've got to iron things out, I have to frighten them first. I have to scare them first. Because he's frightened and he's expressing his fear. So everything, and that's why people say, oh, escalate to de-escalate. Oh, he's going to start big and say, oh, I'm going to crush you, destroy you, wipe you out. And then he's going to back down. Why? Because he's scared to death. He's dealing from a perspective of fear. And so he always has to transfer that fear to the other person. There's another psychiatry saying, it says, what is it? Project, deny, project, attack. Not me, it's you. Like a lot of people who hate gay people, it's like they hate gay people. Why? I'm not gay, you're gay, and then they attack you. That's why people that hate gay people, I'm always like, I think maybe, you know what I mean? I think this dude hates gay people a little too much. Yeah, I got nothing against gay people. I'm not denying anything here, dude. Could you possibly be looking in a mirror there and scared of what you see? But you know what I mean? Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but so I think with Trump, he tries to transfer his horror and fear to whoever his adversary is to scare the daylights out of them. And then he feels more comfortable. He gets rid of that anxiety. And now he's ready. It's not so much, I want to scare you, but I got to get rid of that adverse fear and anxiety that I have and project it onto you. So I'll do all these things to get you scared. And then I'll be like, okay, I'm not scared anymore. Okay, I'm ready to negotiate. Let's go. Right. And that's kind of psychologically the way a lot of psychologists evaluate people who always start with bluster. You know what I mean? They stick their chest out. Don't you mess with me, man. I'll kick your ass. Why is that? Because they're scared to death and they want to transfer the fear to you. I think that's his conflict resolution skills. He always tries to scare his adversary before he's going to. And I think that could be the case with Iran here. If I had to bet, I'd say that's likely the case.
I think Donald Trump has taken certain lessons from his political career. I think North Korea was probably formative in his mind. Oh, I was able to get a deal with Kim Jong-un by threatening first and then de-escalating. And I also think that in his mind, that if he could scare somebody, that he may be able to get more out of it than if he just deal with them openly. I think the difference with Russia is Russia won. Like you said, there was a boot on the ass of every NATO country that was involved in the conflict. And so it's like, okay, fair enough. You took power at the barrel of a gun. We can't push on this because There's no way for us to push. But everybody else is fair game. And so if you look at Canada, oh, you're going to be the 51st state. You look at Greenland, we're taking Greenland. What are you going to do about it? It's threats. I don't know if he's scared of these countries. I suspect it's a little bit like England, where they got into their heads, we're the masters of the world, we can do whatever we want. And again, with Russia, he just ran into a hard edge. There was nowhere else to go with that. I mean, what are you going to do? Have nuclear war? You've already lost the war. So what are you going to do on the battlefield? Nothing. But Iran, fair game. China, I don't know if you can pull that with China, but maybe you can try, especially with the tariffs. You may push in that direction. You can talk about Asia pivot and everything else. I don't know if it's fear. But I don't think he's personally afraid. I do think it's arrogance. I do think it's pride. I think he has a sense of being an American president, and there's all sorts of ideas built on top of it. What I mean by that is, like, if you say somebody's your dad, okay, well, what does it mean for somebody to be a dad as opposed to just a regular guy? There's so many things that are built into this notion of being a dad, so many responsibilities, entanglements, attachments, responsibilities that you have to something else that's typically a child. And I think the same thing is true for a president. Like, what does it mean to be a president? Okay, well, what does it mean to be a president of the United States? And what is the mind frame? The moment that a person hits that pinnacle of power like that and is looking out at the world, and they think to themselves, we spend $1 trillion on that military. We should be able to tell the world what to do. We're the hegemon. Okay, be careful with that. Like, it's one thing to be a hegemon in theory. It's another thing to try to actualize that power and utilize that power. And you may come up short, because any use of power is only an estimation of what you possibly can do, right? If I'm playing chess and I think, okay, I think I can do that. I think I can get a mate out of this when I sack this piece. You don't know that as a flat fact. You may find yourself in a world of hell and like, okay, I'm scrambling to get out of this particular position. Trump needs to be very careful with arrogance. It can take him to bad places. And fact of the matter is, going to Iran is a bad place. It's like, why does he think Bush was a successful president? Bush wasn't. Bush embroiled himself in a war in Iraq that Bush started on the premise of a lie. No, there weren't consequences for Bush, but Bush fundamentally screwed the pooch and ultimately had to give Iraq back to Iraq. And yeah, you were able to get rid of Saddam Hussein, but look at what happened after. You ended up with ISIS. ISIS was taking all the territory. You had to invest military assets in order to push back ISIS. The Russians had to get involved. The Iranians had to get involved. Meaning all of these groups had to get involved for a screw up that George Bush made. And I'm saying that Trump is about to make an even worse screw up than George Bush, at least from my assessment. I mean, I could be wrong.
Yeah, I agree. If he does it, it's an empire-ending screw up.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Will. That's it. One of the things I've said about this, as this empire, it's clear to see that it's coming to an end. Shall we say? Its domination is coming to a very rapid end. And what's interesting is the Democrats and the Republicans have different ways of trying to save it, right? But as it's obvious that it's ending, one thing is obvious to me: anything that they do to try to save it only makes it crash faster. Everything that I've seen that they've done that to try to save the empire, because in trying to save it, they have the same mentality that screws it up. How are you going to save it? By pushing countries around. How are you going to save it? Tariffs. How are you going to save it? Sanctions. How are you going to save it? Domination. Well, that's what's killing it. The people don't like the domination. So every single thing that they do to try to save it only makes it go down faster. Let me ask you this.
Agreed.
Speaking of which, so apparently Trump's doing 25% tariffs on cars made outside of America. He's caught in, I had somebody say this one time, and I never thought about it. And then they said, the most radical policies always are the person that says, I want to go backwards, back to a time when things are wonderful, right? Back when things were worked. The most radical policies ever, and the ones that are the most damaging, are the ones that try to take you backwards, because let's face it, you can't go back in time. And the world that existed then doesn't exist now. And what worked back then won't work now. right? And so Trump's originally MAGA was going to go back to the 50s, I think, really, but back when there were good paying jobs. Well, there was also unions, so you hate unions, but you want to bring back good paying jobs. I don't think those two things are going to go together.
Yeah, good
Because
luck
the
with that.
people that own these corporations, the only reason they were good paying jobs was because unions forced them to do it. But no,
Yeah.
that ain't going to work. Stop the unions. Now he's going to go all the way back to the turn of the century to tariffs. And now, like, you're going to devastate. Oh, Europe is done. You're going to devastate Europe. I mean, their car industry is going to suffer. Japan, they're in the crappers, and they're. But meanwhile, what are Americans going to say when they go over to the Honda dealer and they're like, "We got bad news. You want a Honda? Only one, either one of two things. If they have factories that put them together here, here's the next problem with that. You know what that is? It also applies to parts
Yes.
made outside.
Yes.
So even if you're buying a Ford and the parts were made in Mexico, if they're putting together a Honda in Alabama at the Honda factory where they assemble them, the parts were made in Japan. So the price of everything, for the most part, 25% at a time, when people are saying, I can't afford cars. Why? Because you got here to buy a regular old car that's just average car and it's 40 grand. Well, bad news. It's 50 now. That's it. That's going to have I mean, you're laying off tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of federal employees. That's going to have an effect on and now you're raising the price of vehicles by 25%, all these tariffs. People brought you in here because prices were too high, not too low. And then you say, well, you're going to have to take a little pain for a while, but it's going to turn things around. Yeah, well, people didn't come in here saying you should have told them beforehand, hey, are you going to lower prices? Not exactly. I'm going to raise them first, which eventually will make them lower. When? Probably take 20, 30 years, I guess. I don't know, something like that. Who knows? I have no idea. It's all a guess. It's preposterous.
But that's their argument, though. That, we have to reshuffle the U.S. economy, and we need to, do this because globalization has affected and changed the context of the world, in a world where we thought we'd be at advantage forever, but we're not anymore. So, we need to have this kind of new norm. He is going to cause chaos. Now, their argument would be, well, this chaos is necessary, but in the end, everything is going to be great. Okay, that sounds a lot like Boris Johnson, where Boris Johnson was talking about Brexit. And Boris Johnson was making this argument like, yeah, it's going to hurt. But keep in mind, he made this argument to people in a closed room where he didn't know that there was a camera and cell phone recording, that he was saying it was going to hurt in front of everybody else. Oh, we're going to be Fortress Britain, and we're going to go and make deals around the world and everything else. Missing the fact that little tiny Britain is not going to get a good trade deal in the context of, let's say, in the entirety of the European Union that can negotiate favorably for all of them. And so, Trump is making this argument. Maybe the argument was true, but we're 50 some years on for globalism. You're going to increase prices across the board. And if that's what you need to go through, fair enough. But this is a billionaire not caring about the fact that prices are increasing because he can buy whatever he needs to buy. Everybody else is screwed. And keep in mind, the people that voted for Trump were the working class. Like, this was groups of people who voted for him with the idea that he was going to cut costs, he was going to be better for the economy, that he was going to, be a better president for workers. And he's only been the opposite. He's cut jobs. RFK Jr. is getting rid of 40,000 jobs in health and human services alone. That doesn't include Social Security. That doesn't include Medicare. That doesn't include Medicaid. They're going after the VA. That's the other thing. They lost Maria Bartiromo on that one, where Bartiromo was like, this seems like a bad idea. You're going after these veterans. What are they going to do? How are the cuts going to affect service? And of course, because Trump is a flagrant liar, and he's hired people who are flagrant liars, Hexa being one of them, it's like, this is not going to be an issue. Everything is going to be great.
Oh, yeah.
We're just getting rid of waste, fraud, and abuse. Dude, if you call Social Security today, Social Security would tell you, based on the cuts and based on the number of people that have been laid off, we have extended the amount of time it takes to get to you to several months. So they're like 5-6 months out before they can even get to you. And they're even screwing with it in a way that your ability to register has been damaged. Like, All of these people have flagrant lives. And so when they say, oh, it's just waste, fraud, and abuse, they're lying through their teeth. They're damaging these aspects of government. And the notion that the world's richest man is taking action that is damaging people who are the poorest is disgusting. These degenerates are not doing the work that they were hired to do. They're doing something else. I agree with you, 1,000%.
Well, I think, and my belief is this, it's all ideological. We see Elon Musk and all these people with Javier Milei and the chainsaw and all, right? They have there is a very strong libertarian ideological bend to the Trump MAGA Part 2, right? Probably, I would put it to this in a way similar to the Nazis in Ukraine. Hear me out. The Nazis in Ukraine are a very, very small part of the population, but they have a very oversized presence politically, right? Okay. The libertarians are not a large size of MAGA. They're part of MAGA, but they're not real big. But they are far overly represented, particularly by one Elon Musk, right? So what we have is the ideology says government's bad, all government is bad, get rid of government. The more government we get rid of is bad, right? That's it. That's an ideology. Therefore, you don't, if they said, Garland, we need to downsize the government, we need to blah, 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 I'd say, okay, here's what we need to do. We got to take a year or 6 months. Why? Because we got to evaluate what all we need, decide what we can do with, what we can't do with. I would take a technical perspective of we don't want to do anything stupid and screw things up. But because it's ideological and you already know that all government is bad and that smaller government is good, as a rhetorical ideological belief, it doesn't matter how many you get rid of, all of them, because ideologically it's good to make smaller government. Yeah, we got smaller government. All the people there are doing nothing. All the people there wasting their time spending government money. We're going to be so much better when we can, hey, where's my Social Security check? Oh gosh, I can't get well, I called in to find out why there was a problem with taxes, and they said nobody can answer. And I'll get a call back within 12 years. Then you're on the list. Okay, what number am I on the list? You're number 467,522. We're averaging 10 minutes per call. Well, what happened? They just fired 60,000 people that answered phones. Otherwise, somebody would be on now. But because ideologically, you already know that we're better off with smaller government. So what you're having is these are ideological reduction of government. Now, at some point, they'll wake up. Hey, what happened? And Trump's going to pay a price for that. And Musk, you listen to Musk, and there's this, again, an ideological belief, almost like Calvinism. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. Well, if you're rich, then it's because you were chosen by God to be rich. That's how we know that you're the right person and you're good, and you're a good person and you're brilliant, because the fact that you're rich it tells us that God chose you to be rich, right? The fact that he's a billionaire tells us that he's smarter than everybody else, that he's brilliant, that we got to listen to this guy. And he believes that crap. And when Trump sits there playing tiddlywinks in the Oval Office and he's waxing philosophically, looking up, well, I think what we're going to have to do is this. And all the true believers are looking like this. Yeah, he's a billionaire. He's so smart. Everything he's telling us is going to work. No, it ain't. No, it ain't. Here's a guy that's got $5 to $10 billion in government contracts telling you he's got to lay off government workers who work at the office freaking for, whatever, 80 grand a year and benefits. But he ain't going to give up his $5-10 billion to SpaceX and everything else. Nope, he ain't giving away into that. None of that's waste, fraud, and abuse. You notice that I haven't heard that he's going through SpaceX to get rid of waste, fraud, and abuse because they got $5 billion in government contracts. Ain't happening. And I will guarantee you this. However much they save, the Pentagon's going to ask for that much times 2. They will increase. Okay, we got rid of $8 billion, $10, $12, $15 billion in government employees' salaries. What do you think we should do? Well, the Pentagon has called and they said they need 8 new ships, and it's going to cost twice that much. I think, of course, there's no waste, fraud, and abuse with Lockheed Martin, only with like soccer moms who work for the Department of Agriculture.
I think it's worse than that. I think what they're going to do is be like, all right, we saved all of this money. Now we can give ourselves more tax cuts.
Oh, yeah, of course. Well, that's a given. That's
it's going to be like, all right, we saved $8 billion. Now we can give ourselves $20 billion in tax cuts because we are, fantastic. I strongly suspect that money is just going to go back in tax cuts.
Oh yeah. You know what it's going to be? It's going to be just another way of extracting money from the working class, putting it in the hands of the rich. We saved money, and billionaires, if you give them more tax cuts, they'll invest it because they're the job creators, and then they'll make the economy. They always say that, and it never works. You are 100% right. Well, going into the military industrial complex is also a way of giving it to the rich. So they will extract money from the working class because that's what they do. And they will put it in the hands of Elon Musk and his cronies. And I don't know what people are going to do.
There are going to be consequences. And the thing that pisses me off the most about this, weirdly enough, is not exactly related to Republicans. I know people are saying this is somehow different. It's not. They're doing Republican stuff. The stuff that they're doing is just stuff in a Republican playbook. Every rando Republican that gets in office, this is their fever dream. This is their wet dream of the things that they effectively want to do to America and to the government itself. Trump is just doing them. My issue is that Democrats are going to get back in office after doing nothing. Meaning, it's not like the party is in shambles. The party has been crushed. The party has come into some soul, reflection on how they messed up, how they lost the working class to billionaires. They're not doing it. They're standing there saying, hey, he's going after Social Security, vote me in. Hey, he's destroying the workforce, vote me in. Hey, he's destroying the economy, vote me in. And if you look at these two elections that are taking place, I think in Florida, Trump won by 30 points. And yet a Democrat won that seat.
Well, here's the thing about it, though.
Go for it.
Trump was not on the ballot.
That is true.
Which means he brings all of those people. You know what I'm saying?
But
of course, he'll never be on the ballot again.
Or he's pissing people off.
Yeah. But to some extent, him not being on the ballot. But here's the thing. As I was saying, the second part, Trump's not on the ballot, so he doesn't bring all the Trump people. But Trump will never be on the ballot again. He'll never be on the ballot to bring all those people. I'm not convinced that the Democrats in the midterms or whatever really are going to be able to make hay, because if you look at it from a broader perspective, the Democrats have lost the youth vote and they ain't coming back because of Gaza. They don't want to admit that. Because of Gaza, they've lost a big chunk that ain't coming back. So I don't know what to think. What people like you and I think. Maybe I hope they go to a third party. I think they're more likely to stay home. I don't think. Look at their 27%.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm not convinced that they got any horsepower to do anything in the midterms. The Republicans may be able to screw up, and the Democrats are so bad they may not. I'll put it like this. If the Democrats don't win something in the midterms, they're not a viable party anymore.
Oh,
they're not really. They don't win something in the midterms. I don't see how.
Because
I don't know.
Oh man, there's this. I call it the esoteric other in elections. Democrats are 29% true. Well, 27%, depending upon your poll, NBC or CNN. I think it's NBC. I forget the other one. But the American public has this tendency to not vote third party, even when they don't like the options. They would say, yeah, I don't like this Republican. I don't really like this Democrat, but I don't want my vote to go wasted because even though I may vote for this person, this other person won't vote for it. And so I'll just vote for this lesser evil. And they continuously do that year after year after year. Every time they go to the polls, you would get the majority of people saying, I don't like either party. And yet, despite not liking either party, they vote for one of the political parties. I don't know how to get past that.
I think a lot of them will stay home. What about that? Maybe a lot of them will stay home, particularly in the midterms.
Yeah. Which, again, I would prefer those people vote third party as opposed to stay home. And that's kind of the problem, right? From their point of view, voting third party is effectively no different than staying home, which sucks for third parties because it means they can't get traction because a large share of the American public has decided, okay, the political system is not doing anything for me, so I'm just staying out of the political system. Okay, but don't.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think you've got to go in a different direction. We do need significant change, but Well, let's just look now. We're just the only thing we can hope for is that we don't get in a catastrophic war. That's that sad
Yeah,
state of affairs.
yeah,
The best we can do now is like, oh my God, are we going to get into another catastrophic war this week? And you know what? If we don't attack Iran, you know what? In 2 weeks, 3 weeks, we'll be afraid of the next catastrophic war. Oh my God, they're bringing ships all over North Korea. Are we going to attack North Korea? Oh no, we're going through the Straits of Taiwan. Are we going? You know what I mean? It's like we just bounce from the horror of the potential of one catastrophic war after another. It's pretty horrifying.
yeah. I agree. I totally agree. I'm hoping that Iran is the last one of these. I'm hoping that they come up with a deal. I'm hoping this is just a pressure campaign, but I'm stuck in the position of hoping. And like I said, we don't know what was in that letter from Iran. Like, we're told that Iran was open to back channel communications, almost kind of like yeah, we're not accepting this under threat. However, behind the scenes, we will talk to you under certain terms through a third party actor. Okay, well, I'm hoping the talks to the third party actor yields something. I think the problem that Trump has is the point when you say 2 months. 2 months is a deadline that is very specific. And if 2 months comes and they don't respond to threats, okay, then what do? If you don't act, nobody takes you seriously. So you're almost stuck with acting at the point when you put out something like that at the level of the presidency. And to send this thuggish letter is outrageous. Like, even that is grotesque. You're sending a letter effectively threatening this other country, saying, if you don't negotiate with me, then I'm going to attack you. This is this gunboat diplomacy that was used against China, where they effectively forced opium into China, right? Where it's like, we're forcing your ports open. We're forcing you to make a deal with us. Okay, who the hell makes a deal under threat and duress? Like, I have a gun to your head. Let's make a deal. Okay,
that ain't a deal.
No, that's not a deal. That's something else.
Yeah, I think Iran's calling. And what do you do when people call your bluff? See, I think that's what Iran's going to do. That Iran's calling their bluff. Well, you better make a deal within 2 months, or I'm going to attack you. Okay, well, you have to attack me then. Let's do it.
Yeah.
Now they've called your bluff. Are you really going to do that?
It's like, now what? Now what? 2 months.
That was stupid. It was so stupid. Boy, what a stupid thing to do. At any rate, Jamarl Thomas, everybody, we run when Jamarl and I are on, we run it on both of our channels. So make sure you go to Jamarl's channel. If you are a subscriber to this channel and not Jamarl's, well, you need to fix that and be a subscriber to Jamarl's channel, and the same vice versa. Jamarl has a show on every Monday through Friday from 7 a.m. to 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And he's got lots of great guests. And of course, later on, he cuts the show up. And if you don't get a chance to see it, you can just go to his channel and the various guests will be there for various segments. So make sure you enjoy it. Everybody, like, subscribe. If you can follow me on Rumble, Rockfin, Telegram, stuff like that. And of course, you see everything going by PayPal and Buy Me a Coffee and Patreon, that kind of stuff. Where can they donate to your channel?
PayPal, Super Chat, Super Stickers, all those things. Shout out to, I think this is Ivan B. Shout out to Paz Mo. Wow, Paz Mo, shout out to you big time. Thank you very much, Paz Mo. You're deeply appreciated, my man. But yeah, PayPal, Super Chat, Patreon, and yeah, 7 a.m., 10 a.m., Monday through Friday. Check me out.
All right, thank you very much. All right, everybody, share this on all your social media platforms. Don't forget, subscribe and like. We're out.